I was sitting alone at my small kitchen table when it happened. The evening light was fading, and the room was filled with that quiet, golden silence that comes right before the night settles in. I had just made myself a cup of tea, the way I always do when the house feels too empty. I reached for my old tablet, mostly to check the weather or read the news. Nothing special. But that evening was different. A message popped up, a name I had never seen before. But the picture made my heart stop. A young girl, warm brown eyes, a face soft and familiar in a way that hit me like a wave. She couldn't have been more than 16 or 17. The message said only 4 words. "Are you my grandmother?" For a moment, the world seemed to pause. My hands began to shake. I read the message again, slowly, as if my eyes were afraid to believe it. Grandmother. It was a word I had not heard directed at me for so many years that it felt almost foreign. A word filled with memories I tried to bury because remembering them hurt more than forgetting. I leaned back in my chair and felt tears gather in the corners of my eyes. I didn't wipe them away, I just let them fall. I whispered to myself, could it really be her? After all this time? The tea beside grew cold. For years, I lived with the quiet pain of being erased, forgotten, separated from the people I once called family. My granddaughter was born after everything fell apart, and I never had the chance to hold her. I never saw her first steps. I never heard her first words. I wasn't there for her birthdays, her school events, her laughter, or her tears. I wasn't there at all. I thought she would grow up without even knowing I existed. I thought the door to that part of my life was locked forever. But that evening, a simple online message cracked it open. My heart beat faster. I didn't type anything, not yet. I was afraid that replying would pull me back into old wounds, old mistakes, old regrets. Afraid that she might not be who I hoped she was. But even more afraid that she might be. I held the tablet close, took a deep breath, and whispered into the quiet room, if you really are my granddaughter, then maybe this is my second chance. I did not answer her message right away. Instead, I placed the tablet gently on the table, almost as if it were something fragile that could shatter if I touched it too quickly. My heart was beating in a rhythm I had not felt in years, the rhythm of hope mixed with fear. It was strange, really, how a few words on a screen could stir memories I had spent so long trying to keep quiet. I leaned forward, folded my hands, and let out a long, shaky breath. My name is Evelyn, but for most of my life, people called me Mama Eve. It was a name filled with warmth, a name that reminded me of family dinners, of birthdays in the backyard, of children running around with cake on their faces, a name that once made me feel like I belonged somewhere. But life has a way of shifting underneath your feet when you're not looking. One small misunderstanding leads to another, then another, until suddenly the people who once sat with you at the breakfast table become strangers, living their lives far away. I stared at the quiet kitchen, thinking about all those years. The wooden cabinets my husband installed before he passed. The little ceramic bird on the windowsill that my daughter painted when she was 10. The soft ticking of the clock above the doorway. Everything in that room carried a piece of the life I once had. A life where I dreamed of grandchildren running through the house. But that dream never came true. At least not in the way I expected. I remember the day I found out my daughter was expecting a baby. She didn't tell me herself. The news reached me through someone else, a distant cousin who mentioned it casually, surprised I hadn't known. That was the first time I realized I was no longer part of her inner circle. And I still don't know exactly when I drifted out of it. Maybe it was after my husband died, when I withdrew into my grief. Maybe it was after the arguments about small things that grew into larger things. Maybe it was when my daughter married someone I didn't know well and didn't fully understand. A man who always seemed to look at me like I was a guest instead of family. People drift apart quietly. Sometimes you don't even hear the sound of the door closing. For years, I lived on the outside of their world, watching from a distance. A Christmas card one year, a short phone call another year, then eventually nothing. The silence grew larger and larger until it was the only thing left between us. I never met my granddaughter, not even once. I imagined her sometimes, what she might look like, how she might laugh. I wondered if she knew I existed, or if my name had been erased entirely from family stories. I would sit on this very table in the early mornings, drinking tea, thinking about a girl who lived in the world, but not in my life. And then, last night, she messaged me. It was as if the universe decided that silence had lasted long enough. I stood up from the table and walked to the living room. The house was dim, lit only by a floor lamp in the corner. I sat down on the couch, the one with the soft floral pattern that had faded over the years. I pulled a small blanket over my legs and stared at my hands. These hands once held my daughter when she was a baby. These hands packed her lunches, braided her hair, wiped her tears. These hands waved goodbye when she left home, not knowing that goodbye would stretch into decades. I closed my eyes and let the memories come. I remember the way my daughter used to run through the hallway, her little footsteps echoing. I remember the sound of her laughter when she played in the backyard. I remember how she used to sit in my lap and ask me to tell her stories about my own childhood. Those were warm years, tender years, years I thought would last forever. But life taught me that nothing stays the same. When my daughter grew older, our relationship changed. I don't blame her. Children grow. They form their own ideas. They make their own decisions. But somewhere along the way, little cracks appeared between us. Small disagreements about things that shouldn't have mattered. She felt I interfered too much. I felt she shut me out too quickly. We both made mistakes. The last conversation we had, the one I still replay sometimes, ended with her saying she needed space. I respected that, but I think she meant a few weeks, and I gave her years. Sometimes giving someone space becomes giving them distance, and distance, if left untouched, becomes separation. I didn't expect to be forgotten entirely, but life doesn't always ask for permission before it changes you. I heard the faint buzz of my tablet from the kitchen. Another message. My heart jumped. I walked back to the table and picked it up. There was a second message from her. Mom never talks about you. I just want to know who you are. The words felt heavy. Heavier than the first message. My granddaughter wasn't just looking for me. She was searching for answers she had never been given. I imagined her, sitting in her room somewhere, maybe late at night, scrolling through old family photos or records. I imagined her typing my name into a search bar, wondering What happened? Why her mother avoided the subject? Curiosity, loneliness, maybe even longing. Children feel these things more deeply than adults realize. I sat back down, my fingers hovered over the keyboard. I wanted to tell her everything. The truth, the mistakes, the love, the regret. But I didn't know where to begin. How do you introduce yourself to someone who should have known you their whole life? Before I could type, another message appeared. If this is the wrong person, I'm sorry. But you look like someone Mom once showed me in an old photo. I closed my eyes. So she had seen me. At least once. A tiny corner of a memory, a faint glimpse. That alone made my heart ache with both joy and sorrow. I typed slowly, carefully, afraid of saying the wrong thing. My name is Evelyn, and I think I might be your grandmother. I stared at the words before pressing send. My finger trembled. I whispered softly, "Here we go," and tapped the screen. A long moment of silence followed. I could hear the wind outside brushing against the window. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator. I could hear my own heartbeat. Then her reply appeared. "Can we talk? I've been wanting to know the truth for a long time." I felt something inside me, something long asleep, gently awaken, like the first warm day after a long winter. Maybe this was my chance to find out what happened. Maybe this was her chance to fill in the missing pieces of her life. Maybe this was the beginning of something healing. I held the tablet close to my chest, as if hugging a part of my life I thought I had lost forever. In that quiet kitchen, under the fading evening light, I whispered a prayer. Not for forgiveness, but for connection, for understanding, for a bridge to form between the years that had separated us. I didn't know what the next conversation would bring. I didn't know what truths were waiting. But for the first time in many years, I didn't feel so alone. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed with the soft glow of the street light slipping through the curtains, listening to the quiet hum of the night. My mind replayed every message, every word, every memory that her appearance had stirred. I felt like I had stepped onto a fragile bridge suspended between the past and the present, and I was afraid of how easily it could break. Around midnight, I sat up, reached for my robe, and returned to the kitchen. The house always felt safer at night, as if the darkness wrapped around me like a blanket, giving me space to think without interruption. I made a fresh cup of tea, chamomile, the kind I drink when my heart feels too heavy. I sat down and looked at the tablet again. My granddaughter, a girl I had never met, wanted to talk to me. Her name appeared at the top of the screen, Lily. A soft, gentle name, a name that made my chest tighten a little. There was a new message waiting. "Are you awake? I don't want to bother you." I smiled to myself. How thoughtful she sounded. I began typing slowly. "I'm awake. You're not bothering me. You can ask me anything." She responded almost immediately, as if she had been sitting there waiting. "Why did your mom stop talking to you?" My breath caught. I had expected questions, but maybe softer ones. Not something so direct, not something that touched a wound I had spent years trying to understand myself. I typed, then erased my words. Typed again, erased again. How do you explain years of distance in a single message? How do you talk about mistakes without sounding defensive? How do you protect her mother while still being honest? After a long pause, I wrote, "It's complicated, but I never stopped loving her, and I never stopped wanting to be in her life." There was a pause this time, longer. I imagined her reading my message, trying to make sense of it. Then came another. "Mom says you left. She said you didn't want to be around us." A sharp pain went through me. Not anger, just a deep ache. I rubbed my forehead and closed my eyes. Left? I never left. I was asked to step back, and I listened. Maybe too well. But I couldn't tell Lily everything, not yet. Not in the middle of the night through a screen. So I typed with care. "I'm sorry she feels that way. The truth is, sometimes people hurt each other without meaning to. Sometimes silence grows between family and no one knows how to break it." Another message came. "Did you ever want to meet me?" My heart broke. Not cracked, broke. I felt tears rolling down my cheeks before I even realized I was crying. I held the tablet tighter and typed with trembling fingers. "Yes, more than anything, I always wished I could know you." I pressed send and wiped my face. This time, she didn't respond right away. The little typing bubble appeared, then disappeared. Appeared again, then stopped. Clearly, she was choosing her words carefully. Finally, "I found a picture of you once. Mom kept it in a box. You were holding her when she was little. I think she misses you. She doesn't say it, but I can feel it." I covered my mouth with my hand. That picture, I remembered it well. My daughter was 2 years old, wearing a yellow dress, laughing so hard her little curls bounced. I didn't know she still had that photo. I assumed she had thrown everything away. Knowing she kept even one picture was a small piece of comfort I hadn't expected. Lily continued, "I want to know your story. I want to know you." Her words were simple but powerful, a teenager reaching across years of family silence toward me. I looked around my kitchen, the dim lights, the quiet shadows, and felt something shift inside my heart. For years, I told myself I didn't need closure, that I was too old for reconciliation, too tired for emotional battles, too fragile to open old wounds. But maybe I wasn't. Maybe I had just been waiting, without knowing it, for someone brave enough to look for me. The next morning, I woke early, like I always do. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the walls with a soft pink glow. I made breakfast, oatmeal, the same way I've made it for years, but it sat untouched. My mind was still with Lily. Around 9, the tablet buzzed again. She sent a long message this time. "I want to tell you something. Mom and I don't always get along. She's strict, and she gets upset easily. She keeps a lot of feelings inside, and I think it hurts her. She never talks about her past, not about you, not about Grandpa, nothing. Sometimes I feel like I live in a house full of secrets." I read her message several times. Secrets. Yes, there were many. Not cruel ones, just heavy ones. Ones no one ever dared to unpack. I typed back,
Families hold secrets when the truth feels too painful. Your mother carries things I wish I could help her with. Then, Lily wrote something I wasn't prepared for. Mom doesn't know I'm talking to you. I don't think she would want me to. But I needed to know something real about my family. My stomach tightened. This was delicate, dangerous even. I didn't want to cause trouble in her home. I didn't want to be the reason for arguments or tension. So I wrote gently. You don't have to hide anything, but be careful with your heart. Families need patience and honesty to heal. She replied, I trust you, even if we've never met. A strange warmth filled my chest. To be trusted by someone who didn't know me felt like a gift. Then she wrote, Can I ask, what happened between you and Mom? There it was, the question I had feared since the moment she messaged me. I stood up from the table and walked to the living room, pacing slowly. I looked at the family photos on the shelf, my daughter as a child, my husband smiling on the day we bought the house, the three of us on a vacation long before things fell apart. How do you tell a child, even a teenager, that relationships can crumble quietly, that love can bruise without breaking, that misunderstandings can grow roots so deep they become part of the foundation? I sat down, folded my hands, and began typing. Your mother and I loved each other very much, but after your grandfather passed away, I wasn't myself for a long time. I was sad, withdrawn, and confused. She needed me, and I wasn't there the way she hoped. We drifted apart, misunderstood each other, hurt each other without meaning to. It wasn't anyone's fault, just sadness and silence. I paused, then added, I never stopped loving her, and I never stopped wanting to fix things. She responded immediately. Did she ever try? I hesitated. How could I explain the years of brief attempts, the phone calls filled with small talk and unsaid feelings, the visits that ended with polite smiles instead of real conversations, the way we both walked on eggshells, afraid to reopen wounds we didn't know how to heal? I wrote,
We tried, but sometimes trying isn't enough when the pain hasn't been spoken. She sent another message. Mom always acts like she doesn't need anyone, but I think she's hurting. Maybe she misses you, but she doesn't know how to say it. I stared at her words, feeling something tender unfold inside my chest. Maybe. Maybe my daughter missed me more than she allowed herself to admit. Maybe she carried guilt the same way I did. Lily's next message was the one that truly shook me. Grandma, do you want to see me? In person. My breath stopped. Part of me wanted to scream yes. Part of me wanted to drive to her door that very moment, gather her in my arms, and make up for all the lost years. But another part, the part shaped by years of hesitation, whispered caution. What if her mother became angry? What if I made things worse for Lily? What if meeting me opened wounds instead of healing them? I typed slowly. I would love to see you someday, but only if your mother knows. I don't want you to feel torn between us. Her reply came fast. I understand. I'll talk to her. I'll try. My heart clenched. She was so young, yet carrying so much. I wrote, Take your time. I'm not going anywhere. She sent a little heart symbol, simple, soft, and for the first time in years, I felt something warm settle into me. a gentle kind of hope. That afternoon, I went out to the garden. The roses needed trimming. The sunlight was warm on my skin, and the air carried the smell of freshly cut grass. As I clipped the branches slowly, I found myself smiling. For the first time in a long time, I felt connected to the world again, not just through memories, but through someone real, someone young, someone who saw me not as the woman who was pushed aside, but as the grandmother she had been searching for. But life is rarely gentle for long. Around evening, as the sun began to set, my tablet dinged again. I wiped my hands on my apron and picked it up. The message wasn't from Lily. It was from an unknown number. And it said, "Why are you talking to my daughter?" My heart dropped. It was my daughter. The past had finally found me again. I stared at the message on the screen for a long time. Why are you talking to my daughter? It felt as if the room suddenly grew colder, the walls closing in around me. I placed the tablet on the table with shaking hands. My breath came in shallow waves, like someone had pressed a heavy stone against my chest. After all these years, after all the silence, after all the aching distance, my daughter's first words to me were not, "How are you?" Not, "I've missed you." Not even, "Is it really you?" No. Just 7 words heavy with fear and accusation. I closed my eyes and let the familiar ache rise inside me. It was the same feeling I had on the day she last walked out of my house. Hurt mixed with confusion, love tangled with disappointment. I didn't answer right away. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because I wanted to breathe, to steady myself, to answer the way a mother should, with gentleness, even in conflict. After a moment, I typed, "She reached out to me on her own." I hesitated, then added, "I didn't expect to hear from her." I pressed send and placed the tablet face down on the table. I didn't want to see the screen light up again. I didn't want to brace myself for more sharp words. But the buzz came anyway. I turned the tablet over. "She's just a child. She doesn't know what she's doing." The words stung, not because they were harsh, but because I recognized that tone. That was the voice of a woman who was scared, hurt, protective. The same tone I once used with her when she was small and someone hurt her feelings at school. I read her message again, slowly. There was something trembling beneath the surface, something unsaid. I typed carefully. "She is your daughter. I respect that. And I'm not trying to take her from you." A few seconds later, her reply arrived. "You disappeared. You left us. Why would she talk to you?" There it was again. The story she had shaped all these years. A version of the truth built from pain and misunderstanding. I felt tears prick the corners of my eyes. I typed, "I never left you. I never wanted distance. I only stepped back when you asked for space." For a long time, there was no response. The house was silent except for the ticking clock on the wall. Tick, tick, tick. Every second felt like a memory resurfacing. I remembered our last real argument. It had been a rainy afternoon. My daughter was overwhelmed. New job, new baby on the way, a marriage still finding its footing. I tried to help, but I was grieving your father's passing. I wasn't steady. I wasn't sensitive enough. Words slipped that shouldn't have slipped. Emotions didn't land where they should have. She finally looked at me with exhausted eyes and said, "Mom, I need space, please." If I could go back to that moment, I would have hugged her. I would have apologized. I would have stayed close. But grief makes you blind, and fear makes you quiet. I nodded and backed away too far. Now, after all these years, she held on to that one action as proof that I abandoned her. The tablet buzzed again. "She shouldn't have contacted you. I told her not to." I sat back. So Lily had tried before, and my daughter had shut the door. Another message followed. "I don't want her confused. I don't want her hurt." My heart softened. There was fear in her voice, a mother's fear. I typed, "Neither do I. I would never hurt her." Then I added, almost whispering the words as I typed them, "I never wanted to hurt you either." The typing bubble appeared, then disappeared, appeared again, stopped. She was struggling. Finally, "I don't know if I can trust you." Those words broke something inside me, not out of anger, but out of sorrow. My own daughter didn't trust me. Years of silence had rewritten our memories of us. I took a deep breath and replied, "You don't have to trust me right now. Just let me talk to her gently. Let me be a small part of her life, even if it is only through messages." For a long moment, we both sat there in silence, me on my small sofa, my granddaughter on the screen, her face soft and steady. She had just told me she didn't come to judge the past. She only came because she wanted to know the truth, and she wanted to know me. Her words settled into the deepest parts of my heart. I felt something loosen inside me, something that had been tight for years. Not anger, but a long, quiet grief that had slowly hardened over time. And now, with her here, it began to melt. I took a slow breath and tried to speak gently, choosing each memory carefully. "My dear," I said, "I don't know how much you've heard about me. I don't know what your parents explained or what they kept private, but I want you to know something first. I never stopped caring, not for one moment." She nodded, her eyes soft. "I believe you." Those three simple words lifted a weight I didn't even realize I was still carrying. I leaned back and continued in a calm voice. "Your father and I loved each other very much. But love isn't always enough to protect a family. People get hurt, misunderstandings grow, mistakes stack on top of each other, and suddenly you find yourself outside a home you once helped build." She listened without interrupting. I appreciated that more than she could know. I explained how her father and I drifted apart, how distance and pride replaced communication, how one argument became two, then 10, then a final goodbye that neither of us handled well. I didn't paint myself as a victim, and I didn't paint anyone else as a villain. I just told the truth as softly as I could.
When I finished, she let out a small breath. Thank you. No one ever explained it like that before. I smiled sadly. Sometimes adults hide things to protect the children, but silence can leave bigger gaps than the truth. She nodded again, thoughtful. I always wondered why you weren't there. Not in an angry way, just in a lost way. Those words pierced me gently, not painfully, more like a reminder of what had been missing. I'm sorry, I whispered. I wish I could have watched you grow. I wish I had been there on your birthdays, on your school days, on the nights you felt alone. I wish I had been there to braid your hair or listen to your stories. I wish. My voice broke slightly, but I forced myself to breathe. I wish I had been your grandmother in every way a grandmother should be. Her expression softened even more. Maybe you still can be. My heart caught in my chest. Those were words I never expected to hear, not in this lifetime. I swallowed slowly. I don't want to force anything on you. You're not forcing anything, she said. I reached out to you. That truth settled between us like a warm blanket. We didn't rush the moment. We let it sit. We breathed through it. We allowed it to change us. A soft reconnection. After a while, she asked if she could tell her parents that she had found me. I hesitated, not out of fear of them, but out of fear of disturbing whatever peace they had created in their own lives. I don't want to stir anything, I said gently. She smiled a little. You're not. I think they deserve to know. I trusted her judgment. She was thoughtful, gentle, and wise beyond her years. A few days later, she messaged me. I told them. It was emotional, but it wasn't bad. I sat for a long time staring at that message, letting my heart settle. I'm proud of you, I replied. I'm proud of us, she wrote back, and I think she was right. This was not just her journey, not just mine. It was ours.
The first phone call with her father. A few days later, I received a call. I recognized the voice immediately, even though it had aged. "Mom?" he said quietly. My breath caught. It had been years. Years of silence, years of wondering if we would ever speak again. "Yes," I whispered. "I'm here." There was a pause, not cold, just full of things unsaid. "I heard you've been talking to her," he said. "Yes," I replied gently. "She reached out." She said, it's helping her understand things? I nodded, even though he could not see me. "I'm glad." He breathed deeply. "I should have talked to you sooner." "I should have too." Another silence, but this one felt healing instead of heavy. "Maybe we can try again," he said finally. "I would like that," I whispered. We didn't solve everything in that call. We didn't try to. But a door that had been closed for years quietly opened. Not wide, just enough for light to slip through. A family slowly regathering. My granddaughter continued to message me every morning and night. She sent pictures of her school projects, her favorite place in the park, the bracelet she liked, and even the cookies she baked with her friends. I sent pictures of my garden, my kitchen, the rainy window I always sat beside, and the old embroidered cloth her father had made when he was her age. We weren't rushing anything. We were simply building a bridge, one small stone at a time. Sometimes healing isn't loud. Sometimes it's not even noticeable at first. It's in the quiet moments, the simple acts, the everyday warmth. It grows slowly, like morning light spreading across a dark room. The first time she said it, one evening, as we were about to end the video call, she hesitated. She said, "I have a question." "Yes. Can I can I call you Grandma?" For a moment, I couldn't speak. My chest tightened in the softest, warmest way. Tears filled my eyes, not from pain, but from something deeper, something healing. "You can call me anything you want," I whispered. She smiled, shy and proud at the same time. "Good night, Grandma." And with those words, the years I had lost didn't feel so empty anymore. I pressed my hand against my heart after the call ended. No one could see it, but I closed my eyes and let the moment wash over me. "Good night, my dear," I whispered into the quiet room. For the first time in a very long time, the silence didn't feel lonely. The weeks that followed felt different, lighter, softer, almost like my home had begun to breathe again after years of silent waiting. I woke up each morning with a new kind of warmth, the kind that comes from knowing someone is thinking of you, someone who wants you in their life. My granddaughter and I didn't talk about the past anymore. We talked about the present, and we dreamed a little about the future. One afternoon, she sent me a message. "Grandma, guess what? I wrote an essay at school about someone who inspires me. I wrote about you." I read the message over and over, each time feeling my heart swell a little more. To think that a girl who grew up without me, who never heard my stories, never sat in my lap, never shared holidays with me, could feel inspired by me, it was a gift I never expected. I typed slowly. "You inspire me too, my dear, more than you know." She replied with a simple heart symbol, and somehow that tiny shape held a whole world inside it. A soft reunion of spirits. A few days later, her father called again. This time, his voice was stronger, steadier. "I heard you two are close," he said. "She talks about you all the time." I smiled. "She's a special girl." "He is," he agreed. And then he paused before adding, "Thank you for being kind with her." "I wouldn't know how to be anything else," I answered softly. We didn't talk long. We didn't try to repair every broken piece of the past. We didn't force healing to happen. We simply allowed the possibility of peace to exist. And sometimes that is enough. Sometimes a family doesn't come back together in one moment. Sometimes it returns the way morning sunlight touches a room, slowly, gently, almost shyly at first. But it comes. It comes when hearts soften. It comes when pride fades. It comes when someone brave enough reaches out and says, "I want to know you." For me, that brave someone was my granddaughter. The lesson I learned. As I sit here now at the same kitchen table where her very first message popped up, I feel grateful. The room is still quiet, but it isn't empty. Her voice, her laughter, her questions, they all echo softly in my mind, filling the silence with life.
Sometimes we lose people not because we don't love them, but because life pulls us in different directions. Sometimes misunderstandings grow like walls. Sometimes years pass before anyone is ready to climb over them. But when the moment finally comes, when even a small hand reaches across that wall, you must take it. Gently, bravely, without fear of the past or worry about the future. Because connection is fragile, family is fragile, and second chances, they do not always come twice. I learned that it's never too late to open your heart, never too late to speak softly, never too late to forgive or to be forgiven. Most of all, I learned this. Love does not disappear. It waits, sometimes quietly, sometimes painfully, but it waits. And when you are ready, it returns. Maybe not in the way you imagined, maybe not in the time you hoped, but it returns, often through the most unexpected door. Mine arrived as a message on a screen from a young girl with familiar eyes, asking a question that changed everything. Are you my grandmother? Now, whenever I think of that moment, I smile instead of feeling afraid. I smile because I know the answer is yes. Yes, I am her grandmother. Yes, she found me. Yes, we found each other. And yes, it was worth every quiet year I spent hoping for a chance just like this one. As I close my tablet for the night, I whisper into the soft glow of the room. Thank you for finding me, my dear. You brought my heart back home.